Imagine, I wanted to make a will for my son to pass on to him everything I had acquired during my lifetime. But my lawyer wrote, "Don't include him, he's up to something." What I discovered ruined everything. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. Lawrence's hands trembled. The papers scattered across his mahogany desk like evidence at a crime scene. I watched my attorney of 15 years struggle to meet my eyes, and something cold settled in my chest. "Milton, you need to see this." His voice cracked. I leaned forward in the leather chair. The office smelled of old books and coffee gone cold. Outside, Clearwater's evening traffic hummed on Gulf Boulevard, but in that moment, the world narrowed to the smartphone screen Lawrence pushed toward me. The screenshots showed text messages. I recognized my son's number immediately. "The guardianship petition is ready. Dr. Curtis will sign off on the cognitive assessment for $15,000. Should have everything filed by mid-April." My throat tightened. I read it again, then again. "Who's Dr. Curtis?" The question came out steadier than I felt. "A psychiatrist." Lawrence pulled the phone back. "Not a reputable one. Dennis Fowler's been using him in elder cases for years. I've seen his name in 3 fraudulent guardianship attempts." The name Fowler meant nothing to me then. It would later. "This has to be a mistake." But even as I said it, pieces started clicking into place with sickening clarity. Lawrence shook his head slowly. "My assistant Linda photographed these at Brew Theory coffee shop last week. Fowler was practically bragging to his colleagues about a $420,000 commission from a guardianship case. She recognized your son's name. 3 days earlier, everything had seemed perfect. My 67th birthday. David had insisted on taking me to Harbor Lights, that expensive seafood place on Mandalay Avenue where tourists paid $45 for grouper and called it authentic Florida cuisine. Jessica wore a dress that probably cost more than my first car, and little Chloe bounced in her seat, coloring on the kids' menu with crayons the waitress provided. To Dad, David raised his wine glass. The Malbec caught the sunset through the restaurant's windows. 67 years young and still sharper than any of us. Jessica smiled, that practiced smile I'd seen her use in her Instagram videos. "We're so lucky to have you, Milton." Chloe tugged my sleeve. "Grandpa, look, I drew our house." I'd studied the crayon drawing, a blue square with 4 stick figures. My chest had warmed. "That's beautiful, sweetheart. Is that you?" "That's me and Mommy and Daddy and you." She pointed to each figure. I'd looked at my son then, really looked at him. At 39, David had his mother's eyes but my stubborn jaw. We'd had our differences over the years, sure. What father and son didn't? But that night, watching him cut Chloe's salmon into bite-sized pieces, something in me softened. "I've been thinking," I'd said, setting down my fork. "It's time I got my affairs in order. Make things official." David's hand paused mid-cut. "Dad?" "A proper will, estate planning, all of it." I'd nodded toward Chloe. "Make sure everything goes where it should. To family." Jessica's eyes had lit up. "Oh, Milton, that's wonderful. It's so responsible of you to think ahead." "I want you to have it all, son." The words came easier than I'd expected. The house on Sunset Drive, the investments, everything I built. You're my only child. Who else would I leave it to? David had stood abruptly, walked around the table, and hugged me. The embrace felt genuine. "Thank you, Dad. That means everything." Jessica had touched my hand across the table. "We'll take such good care of things. You don't have to worry about anything." I'd ordered the key lime pie after that. We'd laughed when Chloe got whipped cream on her nose. David picked up the check, $273 with tip, and didn't even flinch. It was a good night. A perfect night. Now, sitting in Lawrence's office, that memory turned rancid. "Keep reading." Lawrence swiped to another screenshot. "Once we get guardianship, he'll be moved to Sunshine Senior Living. Already have preliminary agreement. $6,500 monthly, but worth it to keep him out of the way while we liquidate assets." Liquidate assets? Like I was already dead? "There's more." Lawrence pulled up a document. "This is a petition draft for emergency guardianship. filed under mental incapacity and danger to self. They're claiming you have dementia. That's insane. The laugh that escaped me sounded hollow. I run a tight ship. My finances are perfect. I don't even forget where I put my keys. I know. Lawrence's expression darkened, which is why this is fraud. They're shopping for a doctor who'll sign paperwork saying whatever they want, for a price. My hands gripped the chair arms. The leather creaked. My son is trying to declare me incompetent? Your son, your daughter-in-law, and their attorney, Dennis Fowler. Lawrence counted them off. It's a scheme, Milton. I've seen it before. They get control of your assets, claim they're managing your care, drain everything, and by the time anyone notices, the money's gone. The office walls seemed to close in. The framed law degree behind Lawrence blurred. I thought about David's hug at the restaurant, Jessica's hand on mine, Chloe's drawing of our family. Why would they? But I knew why. The BMW 7 Series David drove, Jessica's designer handbags, the rental house in Palm Ridge that cost more than most people's mortgage, the lifestyle that exceeded a car salesman's salary by several tax brackets. How long have you known? I asked. Linda came to me 4 days ago. I've been verifying everything since then. Lawrence pulled out another file. I wanted to be certain before I said anything. 4 days ago, the day after my birthday dinner. So when I came in today talking about finally making that will, I couldn't let you put David as beneficiary, not until we know the full extent of this. Lawrence met my eyes finally. Milton, if they succeed, you'll lose everything. Your freedom, your home, your autonomy. They'll have you declared incompetent, locked away somewhere, and spend your money faster than you earned it. Outside, the traffic light on Gulf Boulevard turned red. Cars stopped. The world kept moving while mine tilted sideways. What do I do? The question sounded small. I hated how small it sounded. Lawrence straightened his shoulders. We fight back. But first, we need information. Don't let them know you're aware. Act normal. I'll start gathering evidence. He paused. Can you do that? Pretend everything's fine? I thought about 39 years of birthdays. Teaching David to ride a bike on Clearwater Beach. His high school graduation. Walking him through basic finances when he bought his first car. The hope I'd carried that despite everything, despite the distance that had grown between us, we were still father and son. Yeah, I stood. My legs felt steady, even if nothing else did. I can do that. The drive home took 12 minutes. I counted every one. My house on Sunset Drive sat quiet, lights off except for the porch lamp I'd installed last summer, the one David had called unnecessary and a waste of electricity. I sat in my truck in the driveway and remembered something else from recent months. Jessica asking about my memory. Had I repeated myself? David wondering if I'd considered getting checked out by a doctor. The casual suggestions about having someone help manage my accounts. They'd been building their case. The realization hit like cold water. This wasn't impulsive. This was planned. Methodical. They'd been working toward this for months, laying groundwork, establishing a narrative, and I'd almost handed them everything on a silver platter. The next morning arrived cold. I made coffee in my kitchen and watched the sunrise paint Clearwater pink through my window. My hands stayed steady as I poured. That surprised me. David called at 9:15. Hey, Dad, just checking in. His voice sounded cheerful. Too cheerful. How you feeling? Fine, son. Why wouldn't I be? A pause. No reason. Jessica and I were thinking about stopping by later. Maybe around 3? They never stopped by unannounced before. Sure, I'll be here. Great. See you then? I hung up and stared at my phone. Lawrence's warning echoed, Act normal. Don't let them know you're aware. They arrived at 3:02. Jessica carried a casserole dish covered in foil. David held Chloe's hand as they walked up my driveway, the perfect family portrait. We brought dinner. Jessica's smile was magazine bright. Chicken tetrazzini. Your favorite, right? I'd never mentioned liking chicken tetrazzini. That's thoughtful. While Jessica fussed in my kitchen, David wandered. His movements seemed casual, but I noticed. He glanced at the mail on my counter, picked up a bank statement, set it down, walked through my living room like he was measuring square footage. Place is looking good, Dad. He ran his hand along my bookshelf. You keeping up with maintenance, okay? The house is fine. Yeah, but at your age, he caught himself. I mean, it's a lot of house for one person. Ever think about downsizing? Downsizing. The word tasted bitter. Not particularly. Jessica emerged from the kitchen. Milton, where do you keep your insurance papers? I was thinking we should review your coverage. Make sure everything's current. My insurance was none of her business. In my office. I'll handle it. She exchanged a glance with David. Quick. Meaningful. They stayed for an hour. Jessica took photos of my kitchen, claiming she wanted to remember the tile pattern for her own remodel. David asked about my car title, my retirement accounts, whether I'd updated my homeowner's policy recently. Chloe colored at my dining table, oblivious to the vultures circling. After they left, I found David had photographed documents on my desk. I knew because the papers were stacked differently than I'd left them. My son was cataloging my assets. 2 days later, Gerald Foster knocked on my door. My neighbor was 71, retired from the Pinellas County bench, and spent most mornings playing chess at the community center. He held a bag of oranges from his tree. Brought you some citrus. He studied my face. You look tired, Milton. Haven't been sleeping great. Noticed something strange yesterday. Gerald handed me the oranges. Man in a white coat was walking around the neighborhood, had a clipboard, asked me about the resident at 847 Sunset Drive. My address? What kind of questions? About your mental state. Whether I'd noticed memory problems, confusion, wandering. Gerald's eyebrows knitted together. Said he was from Tampa General Hospital, doing community health assessments. Thing is, I've lived here 12 years. Never seen Tampa General do neighborhood assessments. My jaw tightened. What did you tell him? That you're sharper than most men half your age. Gerald leaned against my doorframe. But it bothered me. So I wrote down his license plate. Want it? Please. He pulled a slip of paper from his pocket. Milton, if someone's causing you trouble. I'll handle it. But thank you, Gerald. This helps more than you know. That afternoon, I called a number Lawrence had given me. Sophia Parker answered on the second ring. Mr. Gray, Lawrence said you might reach out. Her office was on Cleveland Street above a sandwich shop. Professional but modest. Sophia was 44, had 15 years as a police detective before going private, and charged $200 an hour. I paid her a $5,000 retainer without blinking. I need to know everything, I said. My son, my daughter-in-law, their attorney, financial records, connections, phone logs if you can get them. Sophia took notes in neat handwriting. This about the guardianship scheme. Lawrence told you. He mentioned the basics. I've seen cases like this before. She met my eyes. They're usually uglier than people expect. Can you find out what they're planning? Give me 2 weeks. Those 2 weeks crawled. David and Jessica visited 3 more times. Each visit followed the same pattern. Concerned questions about my health, subtle probing about my finances, casual observations about how overwhelming managing a house must be at my age. I smiled, nodded, played the role of the trusting father. Inside, I cataloged every lie. Sophia called on a Thursday morning. We need to meet. Her office smelled like coffee and printer ink. The file she spread across her desk was 2 inches thick. Your son has $180,000 in debt. Sophia slid over credit card statements. $47,000 on cards, $95,000 auto loan on that BMW 7 Series, and $40,000 lost in cryptocurrency last year. The numbers swam. How is he making payments? Barely. He's 3 months behind on the car. 2 cards are in collections. She pulled up another document. His salary at Prestige Motors is $62,000 annually. Jessica has no steady income. Her Instagram influencer career generates maybe $300 monthly from sponsored posts. They're drowning. Worse, they rented their house on Palm Ridge Court, $2,800 a month. They can't afford their lifestyle. Sophia tapped a printed email. This is correspondence between David and Dennis Fowler. They've been planning this since January. 4 months of planning. while I'd been hoping my son and I might finally reconnect. Fowler specializes in what he calls asset recovery through protective guardianship. Sophia's tone dripped disgust. He targets elderly people with substantial assets and no close family oversight, finds someone, usually a relative, willing to file for guardianship, then splits the proceeds. Proceeds from what? Everything. Once guardianship is established, they control your assets completely. They pay themselves management fees, sell your property, drain accounts. By the time anyone questions it, the money's gone. My hands clenched. The Dr. Gerald saw. Dr. Raymond Curtis, psychiatrist out of Tampa. He's signed off on 17 guardianship cases in 3 years. Sophia pulled up a photo. For $15,000, he'll diagnose you with whatever they need. Dementia, psychosis, incompetence to manage affairs. That's fraud. It's a felony, but hard to prove until after the fact. She showed me more documents. They've already drafted the petition. Emergency guardianship hearing. Claims you're a danger to yourself. They've got witness statements, fabricated ones, and that medical assessment from Curtis waiting. They're ready to file. When? Mid-April is their target. They want to move fast once it's filed. Sophia pulled out the final document. This is a preliminary agreement with Sunshine Senior Living Facility. $6,500 monthly for a semi-private room. They've already discussed which one. The room spun slightly. My son had picked out the facility where he'd warehouse me. There's more. Sophia's expression darkened. The plan is to liquidate your assets within 6 months. Sell the house, empty the accounts, transfer everything through an LLC Fowler controls. By the time any court reviews the guardianship, you'll be broke and living in that facility on Medicaid. I sat back. The chair creaked. $2.8 million. Give or take. Enough to clear David's debts and set them up comfortably. Sophia closed the file. I'm sorry, Milton. I know this isn't easy to hear. Easy. The word didn't cover it. This was my son, the boy I'd raised, who I'd supported through college, helped with his first apartment deposit, celebrated with at his wedding, the boy who was now planning to steal my life. What are my options? My voice came out flat. We can report Curtis to the medical board, Fowler to the Florida bar, but that takes time. Sophia leaned forward. Or we can beat them at their own game. Build a defensive case so strong they can't touch you. I thought about David's hug at Harbor Lights, Jessica's hand on mine, the lies wrapped in affection. Get me everything, every document, every email, every text message. I stood. I want proof of all of it. What are you planning? To make sure they never see a dime of my money. I paused at the door, and to make them regret ever thinking I was an easy mark. That evening, David called. Dad, Jessica wants to have you over for dinner Sunday. 6 o'clock work? I'll be there. Sunday arrived with clouds threatening rain. Their rental on Palm Ridge Court had a manicured lawn and a leased Mercedes in the driveway. Jessica answered, wearing heels and pearls for a casual family dinner. Milton, come in, come in. The house smelled like roasted chicken and desperation masked as domesticity. David poured me wine I didn't drink. We made small talk while Chloe showed me her schoolwork. Over dinner, Jessica struck. Milton, David, and I were talking. At your age, it's so important to stay on top of health issues. Her smile was practiced. Have you considered getting a full checkup? Cognitive assessment, that sort of thing? David nodded. Just to make sure everything's functioning well. Memory, decision-making. It's preventive care, really. They were setting the stage, building their narrative in front of witnesses, even if that witness was just a 6-year-old. I set down my fork, met Jessica's eyes. That's a thoughtful suggestion. Her shoulders relaxed slightly. In fact, I've been thinking about getting all my affairs in order. I smiled. The smile felt cold, even on my face. Health checkups, legal documents, financial reviews, making sure everything is exactly where it should be. David's smile flickered, just for a second. That's wonderful, Dad. We're happy to help with any of that. I'm sure you are, son. I stood. Thank you for dinner, but I should get going. Jessica walked me to the door. Think about that checkup, Milton. We just want what's best for you. I turned at the threshold, looked at her directly. I know exactly what you want, Jessica. Her smile froze. I drove home through the drizzle and called Lawrence from my truck. They're moving faster than we thought, I said. We need to move faster. What do you need? A plan. A real one. Rain tapped against my windshield. They want to destroy me? Fine. Let's see how they like being destroyed. Lawrence was quiet for a moment. You sure about this, Milton? Once we start, I'm sure. I'd never been more certain of anything. They declared war. They just don't know I'm fighting back yet. All right, Lawrence's voice hardened. Then let's go to war. War required strategy. Lawrence and I mapped it out over coffee the following week in his office conference room, the whiteboard filled with names, dates, legal statutes. First priority, medical documentation. Lawrence capped his marker. We need ironclad proof you're cognitively sound. Not just your regular doctor. We need specialists. Where? Johns Hopkins All-Children's Hospital in St. Petersburg. Top-rated neurology department. 3 independent evaluations from board-certified physicians. He scribbled a note. It'll take 2 days of testing. Cognitive function, memory assessment, full neurological workup. The testing was grueling. I spent 6 hours in a sterile room answering questions, solving puzzles, recalling word lists. A Dr. Patricia Williamson watched me navigate spatial reasoning tests with the intensity of someone searching for cracks in a dam. Mr. Gray, what year's it? 2025. Who's the current president? I answered correctly. Every time. The neuroimaging took another 4 hours. MRI, CT scan, the works. They charged my insurance $4,300. Worth every penny. Dr. Williamson delivered the results personally. Your cognitive function is exceptional for your age bracket. Memory retention tests at 96th percentile. No signs of dementia, Alzheimer's, or cognitive impairment of any kind. She handed me the official report. Whoever suggested otherwise was either mistaken or lying. Oh, they're lying, doctor. Trust me. The second move was financial protection. Lawrence brought in a trust attorney named Richard Montgomery, 63, Yale Law, specialized in asset protection for high net worth individuals. A revocable living trust removes assets from probate, Richard explained in his office overlooking Clearwater Harbor. More importantly, it makes guardianship over assets essentially pointless. The trust owns everything, not you personally. Can they challenge it? They can try. But you're creating it while demonstrably competent. He gestured to my medical files stacked on his desk. These reports are dated, witnessed, comprehensive. Any court will recognize this trust as the legitimate wishes of a sound mind. We transferred everything. The house on Sunset Drive. Investment accounts with Raymond James totaling $1.9 million. My checking and savings at SunTrust. Another $400,000. The proceeds from selling Little Scholars Daycare back in 2019, still sitting in a Vanguard fund at nearly $500,000. $2.8 million moved into the Milton Gray Revocable Living Trust with Lawrence Bennett as successor trustee. The paperwork took 3 days to finalize. The notary's stamp felt like a shield going up. Now what? I asked Lawrence. Now we gather ammunition. He pulled up Sophia's latest report on his laptop. Dennis Fowler has 3 formal complaints filed with the Florida Bar Association, 2 for mishandling client funds, 1 for fraudulent representation in a guardianship case. Why is he still practicing? The bar moves slow, but Sophia found something better. Lawrence turned the screen toward me. Linda Hayes, remember her? Fowler's former secretary who warned us? She's willing to testify. Fowler owes her $11,000 in back wages. She's got emails, recordings, everything. Meanwhile, David and Jessica accelerated their timeline. David called twice weekly now, each conversation peppered with concern. Dad, you sound tired. Are you sleeping okay? Fine, son. Maybe you should see someone, just to talk things through. I bit back the response I wanted to give. I'll consider it. The second week, Jessica messaged me on Facebook. A long, rambling note about family responsibility and making sure you're taken care of, and how they'd notice changes in me. She suggested names of doctors. One was Dr. Raymond Curtis. I saved the message. Evidence for later. Gerald stopped by with more oranges and information. That man in the white coat came back. Talked to the Hendersons 3 doors down. Same questions about you. What did the Hendersons say? That you're the most organized person on the block, and they wish their own kids were half as responsible. Gerald studied me. Milton, what's going on? People trying to take advantage. I took the oranges. I'm handling it. If you need a character witness, I might. Thank you, Gerald. The trap closed tighter on a Tuesday afternoon. I was pruning the bougainvillea in my front yard when a silver Honda Accord pulled up. The man who stepped out wore khakis and a polo shirt with a Tampa Bay Veterans Association logo. Mr. Gray? Milton Gray? That's me. He extended a hand. Dr. Raymond Curtis. I'm doing complimentary health screenings for veterans in the area. Got about 15 minutes for a quick assessment. So this was their play. Free screening. Get me to say something they could twist. I smiled, shook his hand. Sure, doctor. Come on in. My phone was already recording in my shirt pocket. Lawrence had insisted I keep it ready. Voice-activated app. Stores everything to cloud backup. Dr. Curtis settled on my couch. Professional smile. Clipboard ready. This is just a basic cognitive wellness check, nothing invasive. Appreciate it. How old are you, Milton? 67. And you live alone? I do. He made notes. Any family nearby? My son and his family, about 10 minutes away. They check in on you regularly. Often enough. I kept my tone mild. Good, good. Family support is crucial. He leaned forward. Have you noticed any memory issues lately? Forgetting appointments, misplacing items, that sort of thing? Can't say I have. What about confusion? Times when you're not sure where you are or what day it is? Nope. His pen paused. Any difficulty managing finances? Bills, accounts, that type of thing? My finances are in perfect order. Of course. But sometimes people don't realize. He caught himself. Started over. What I mean is, at your age, it's natural for things to become overwhelming. Many people benefit from having family help manage day-to-day affairs. There it was. The narrative. Dr. Curtis. I sat back. Who referred you to me? This is a community outreach program. Through the Veterans Association? That's correct. Interesting. I called them yesterday. They've never heard of you. His expression flickered, just for a second. There must be some confusion. No confusion on my end. I smiled. The smile didn't reach my eyes. But I appreciate you stopping by. I'll make sure to mention this visit to my attorney. Curtis stood quickly. Well, if you're not interested in the screening... Oh, I'm very interested. Just not in the kind you're offering. I walked him to the door. Tell Dennis Fowler that Milton Gray isn't as easy to fool as he thought. The color drained from Curtis's face. He left without another word. His Honda peeled away from the curb faster than necessary. I immediately called Lawrence. Curtis just tried to evaluate me. Got the whole conversation recorded. Perfect. Send it to me. Lawrence sounded energized. This gets better and better. He just committed a felony. Fraudulent medical assessment with intent to defraud. When do we move? Soon. Let them file their petition first. Let them commit fully. Lawrence paused. In chess, you don't take the queen right away. You let your opponent think they're winning. 2 days later, certified mail arrived. Official stationery from Pinellas County Clerk of Court. My hands didn't shake as I opened it. Notice of guardianship hearing case. Number 2025. CP 47. Petitioner, David Michael Gray. Respondent, Milton James. Gray, hearing. Date, April 15, 2025, 10 a.m., Judge Sandra Morrison presiding. The petition claimed I was incapacitated and unable to manage personal or financial affairs, and posed a danger to self through neglect and poor judgment. Attached were sworn statements from David and Jessica describing incidents that never happened. Me forgetting to turn off the stove, getting lost driving to the grocery store, making irrational financial decisions. Every word a lie. I called Lawrence. They filed. Good. His voice was calm, calculating. Now we show them what preparation looks like. I'm filing our response tomorrow. Medical records, trust documents, character witnesses, everything. Plus a formal complaint against Curtis and Fowler to the Florida Bar and Medical Board. What about the hearing? Oh, we'll be there. I could hear the smile in his voice. And Milton, wear your Bronze Star pin, the one from your Marine service. Judges notice things like that. I hung up and looked at the court notice again. April 15th, 3 weeks away. David and Jessica thought they were about to win. They'd filed their petition, lined up their fraudulent doctor, prepared their fake evidence. In their minds, the trap had closed around the helpless old man. They had no idea I'd been building a bigger trap around them. I pulled out my phone and texted Lawrence, "Let's destroy them." His response came immediately, "With pleasure." 3 weeks felt like 3 years. April 15th arrived with cloudless skies and temperatures pushing 85 degrees. I dressed carefully that morning, navy suit, white shirt, the Bronze Star pin on my lapel. The pin caught sunlight as I checked my reflection. Lawrence had arranged everything. We arrived at the Pinellas County Courthouse on Court Street 30 minutes early. The building's limestone facade looked imposing in the morning heat. Lawrence met me at the entrance with 2 other attorneys, Jonathan Pierce and Rachel Hartman, both from his firm. 3 lawyers? I raised an eyebrow. They brought their ammunition. We're bringing an arsenal. Lawrence adjusted his briefcase. Jonathan handles elder law. Rachel specializes in fraud cases. Trust me. We took seats in courtroom 4B. The room smelled like old wood and air conditioning struggling against Florida humidity. Judge Sandra Morrison's bench dominated the space, empty for now. David and Jessica arrived 10 minutes later. Dennis Fowler walked between them like a shepherd guiding sheep. David wore a suit that probably cost more than he could afford. Jessica had on a black dress, somber, appropriate for someone concerned about family. They saw me and David's step faltered. "Dad!" He attempted a smile. "Didn't expect you to fight this, didn't you?" I kept my voice neutral. Dennis Fowler inserted himself between us. Mid-50s, slicked back hair, expensive watch. "Mr. Gray, I'm Dennis Fowler, representing your son. This proceeding is really in your best interest. We all want. I know exactly what you want, Mr. Fowler." I didn't blink. "And you're not getting it." His jaw tightened. "We'll see what the court decides." They took seats across the aisle. Jessica whispered urgently to David. Her hands moved in sharp, nervous gestures. David stared straight ahead, that fake confidence evaporating like morning dew. The bailiff called the courtroom to order. Judge Morrison entered, late 50s, steel gray hair, expression that suggested she'd heard every lie imaginable and believed none of them. Case number 2025, CP-07, David Michael Gray, petitioner, seeking guardianship over Milton James Gray. Respondent. She surveyed the room. This is a preliminary hearing to determine if emergency guardianship is warranted. Mr. Fowler, you may proceed. Dennis stood. His opening statement painted me as a confused old man in decline. He referenced the statements from David and Jessica, the forgotten stove, the getting lost, the concerning financial decisions. He mentioned Dr. Curtis's preliminary assessment, suggesting cognitive impairment. Your Honor, Mr. Milton Gray requires immediate protection from his own deteriorating faculties. His son, out of love and concern, seeks only to ensure his father's safety and well-being. The performance was polished, practiced. Jessica dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. David nodded gravely at appropriate moments. Judge Morrison turned to our side. "Mr. Bennett?" Lawrence stood. 3 other attorneys stood with him. The synchronized movement had impact. Your Honor, this petition is not about protecting Mr. Gray. It's about exploiting him. Lawrence's voice carried through the courtroom. The petitioner and his attorney have engaged in systematic fraud, evidence fabrication, and conspiracy to commit financial elder abuse under Florida Statute 825-103. Dennis shot to his feet. Your Honor, that's a serious allegation. Then perhaps you should have thought twice before making it so easy to prove. Lawrence pulled a document from his briefcase. I'm submitting comprehensive medical evaluations from Johns Hopkins, All Children's Hospital, dated 3 weeks ago. 3 board-certified physicians independently assessed Mr. Gray's cognitive function. All 3 concluded he shows no signs of impairment, dementia, or incompetence. He handed the report to the bailiff. Judge Morrison's expression sharpened as she read. Furthermore, Lawrence continued, I have here a recording of Dr. Raymond Curtis attempting to conduct a fraudulent assessment of Mr. Gray. He pressed play on a laptop. My voice filled the courtroom. Dr. Curtis, who referred you to me? Curtis's recorded response. This is a community outreach program. Through the Veterans Association. That's correct. Interesting. I called them yesterday. They've never heard of you. The silence after the recording was absolute. David's face went pale. Jessica's tissue froze halfway to her eyes. Dennis Fowler looked like he'd swallowed something sharp. Judge Morrison leaned forward. Is Dr. Curtis present? No, Your Honor. He's currently under investigation by the Florida Department of Health. Lawrence smiled thinly. We filed a formal complaint yesterday. Turns out Dr. Curtis has signed 17 questionable guardianship assessments in 3 years, each for a fee of $15,000. Your Honor, Dennis tried to interject, I'm not finished. Lawrence pulled out more documents. Mr. David Gray currently carries $180,000 in debt. Credit cards, auto loans, cryptocurrency losses. His income as a car salesman is $62,000 annually. He cannot sustain his current lifestyle and is 3 months behind on major payments. He laid out the credit reports. The numbers glared under courtroom lights. His motive for this guardianship is simple: access to his father's $2.8 million estate. Mr. Fowler stands to receive 15% as consultation fees, approximately $420,000. Jessica's hand flew to David's arm. Her whisper carried, You told me this would work. Mrs. Gray, Judge Morrison's voice cut like steel, you'll have your chance to speak, if called. Lawrence wasn't done. He presented the trust documents next. 3 weeks ago, Mr. Gray, while demonstrably competent, established a revocable living trust. All assets have been transferred, even if this court granted guardianship over his person, which it should not. There are no assets to manage. They're protected by trust instrument. Dennis Fowler's expensive watch caught the light as his hands gripped the table. His carefully constructed case was imploding in real time. Finally, Your Honor, Lawrence's tone went cold. Mr. Dennis Fowler has 3 pending complaints with the Florida Bar Association. 2 for mishandling client funds, 1 for fraudulent representation in a previous guardianship case. His former secretary, Linda Hayes, is prepared to testify about systematic elder abuse schemes Mr. Fowler has operated for years. Judge Morrison removed her glasses, rubbed the bridge of her nose. Mr. Fowler, do you have response to any of this? Dennis stood slowly. His rehearsed confidence had evaporated. Your Honor, we had reason to believe. You had greed, Mr. Fowler, not reason. Judge Morrison's expression could have frozen fire. This petition is denied. Furthermore, I'm ordering an immediate investigation by the State Attorney's Office into potential fraud, conspiracy, and elder abuse violations. She turned to David and Jessica. Mr. and Mrs. Gray, you attempted to defraud your own father through false testimony and fabricated evidence. I suggest you secure different legal counsel because Mr. Fowler is about to have problems of his own. The gavel struck. The sound echoed. David sat frozen. His face had gone from pale to gray. Jessica burst into tears, real ones this time, born of panic rather than performance. Dennis Fowler gathered papers with shaking hands, already calculating his defense strategy. Outside the courtroom, David caught up to me in the hallway. Dad, please, I can explain. Explain what? I turned to face him. Explain how you planned to declare me incompetent? How you were going to warehouse me in Sunshine Senior Living for $6,500 a month while you sold my house? How you were going to spend my money before I was even declared legally incapable. It wasn't supposed to. He stopped, started again. Jessica, she said. Don't blame your wife for your greed, David. My voice stayed level, ice-cold level. You wanted my money more than you wanted a father. Congratulations. You got neither. Jessica pushed past him, mascara running in black rivers down her cheeks. This is your fault. You said it was foolproof. You said he'd never know. Keep it together, David hissed at her. Keep it together? Her voice rose to a pitch that turned heads. We just lost everything. The judge said fraud. Do you understand what that means? They argued in whispers that weren't whispers. Lawrence touched my elbow. We should go. As we walked away, I heard David call out, Dad, wait. I didn't turn around. That evening, Dennis Fowler received certified mail from the Florida Bar Association. Emergency disciplinary hearing scheduled. License suspension pending investigation. Dr. Raymond Curtis received a visit from FBI agents. Turns out Medicare fraud carries federal charges. And me? I sat on my porch on Sunset Drive, watching the sun set over Clearwater, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. The war had just begun. They'd fired the first shot back in January when they started plotting. I'd just fired back, and my aim was better. The fallout moved faster than Florida summer storms. Within 48 hours of the hearing, Dennis Fowler received notice of emergency license suspension from the Florida Bar. The investigation Lawrence had triggered expanded beyond our case. Turned out Fowler had 17 similar schemes documented across Pinellas and Hillsborough counties over 6 years. Dr. Raymond Curtis fared worse. Federal agents arrested him on charges of Medicare fraud and conspiracy to commit wire fraud. His little side business of selling diagnoses had cost taxpayers an estimated $2.3 million in fraudulent guardianship proceedings. The FBI press release made regional news, but the real bomb dropped 5 days after the hearing. Tampa Bay Times ran the story on page 3. The headline made my coffee taste better. Clearwater man attempts to defraud. Own father through bogus guardianship. The article didn't name David directly, journalist ethics and all that, but the details were specific enough that anyone in Clearwater could connect the dots. 67-year-old veteran, successful daycare business owner, son carrying massive debt, attorney with history of elder abuse schemes. Gerald brought me the newspaper that morning. Saw this and thought of your situation, he pointed to the article. Says here the veteran was a Bronze Star recipient. That you? Might be. His eyebrows rose. Milton, why didn't you ever mention? Didn't seem relevant. I folded the paper. Ancient history. Not so ancient if someone tried to steal from you because they thought you were an easy target. Gerald settled into my porch chair without invitation. You know what the community center's saying? I can imagine. Henderson's figured it out, they told the Johnsons. Now everyone's talking. He shook his head. Your son's reputation's finished in this town. I felt a flicker of something, not quite guilt. Maybe recognition that I'd gone nuclear when a smaller bomb might have worked. But then I remembered the court documents, the fabricated stories, the plan to lock me away in Sunshine Senior Living while they liquidated everything I'd built. The flicker died fast. He earned that reputation, Gerald. David's employer apparently agreed. Prestige Motors called him in 3 days after the hearing. The sales manager, guy named Tom Rodriguez, had fielded complaints from customers who'd read between the lines in the newspaper article. I know this because David called me that evening. Dad, please, they're putting me on probation. Rodriguez says customers don't trust me anymore. His voice cracked. I'm about to lose my job. Then I suggest you look for another one. You could fix this. Tell people it was a misunderstanding. Was it? I let the question hang. Was it a misunderstanding when you told the court I forgot to turn off the stove? When you claimed I got lost driving to Publix? When you signed papers to have me locked in a facility? Silence on the other end. That's what I thought. I hung up. Jessica's Instagram imploded even faster. Her 12,000 followers had been her pride, proof she was someone, something more than a struggling sales manager's wife playing dress-up. The comments section on her last post became a battlefield. Fake life, fake person, fake everything. Imagine trying to steal from your own father-in-law. All those designer bags probably bought with money that wasn't even hers. She deleted every post, shut down the account. Her influencer career, such as it was, died in a storm of public shame. But underneath all the wreckage, one question nagged at me. Lawrence had mentioned it casually during our first meeting, but we'd been so focused on building our defense that I never pushed for details. I called him that afternoon. "How did you really find out? You said your assistant photographed messages at Brew Theory, but that's a hell of a coincidence." Lawrence was quiet for a moment. "Linda Hayes, my paralegal, she used to work for Dennis Fowler." "Used to?" "He fired her 8 months ago. Actually, he stopped paying her first, $11,000 in back wages, then fired her when she complained." Lawrence's tone carried an edge. "Linda's sharp. When she worked for him, she saw the pattern. Wealthy elderly clients, questionable guardianships, money disappearing into LLCs that Fowler controlled. She knew what he was doing. Knew it. Couldn't prove it. Bar complaints require evidence, and Fowler's good at covering tracks." Lawrence paused. "But when she started working for me in January, she kept tabs on her old employer. Professional curiosity, maybe. Or revenge. Smart woman. Very. She was having coffee at Brew Theory last month when Fowler came in with 2 colleagues. They sat 3 tables away. Fowler was practically crowing about his biggest score yet, a guardianship case worth $420,000 in fees. I could picture it. Arrogant lawyer celebrating before the victory was secured. "Linda heard your son's name?" "David Gray. She remembered you from when you'd called my office about estate planning last year." Lawrence's voice tightened. "She took photos of Fowler's phone when he left it on the table to use the restroom. Got screenshots of the whole text chain with David. Then she brought them to you. That same day, told me everything." Lawrence exhaled. "That's when I sent you that message. Don't include him in the will. He's planning something." The pieces clicked into place. A fired secretary with a grudge, a careless attorney celebrating too early, a paralegal smart enough to connect dots. "I owe Linda Hayes my life savings," I said quietly. "She'd probably settle for that 11,000 Fowler owes her." Lawrence's smile carried through the phone. "But I've got better news. The Bar Association is investigating those wages too. She'll get paid plus penalties." After I hung up, I sat on my porch and thought about chains of events. If Fowler had paid Linda, if she hadn't been in that coffee shop, if she hadn't recognized David's name, if Lawrence hadn't warned me, I'd have signed over everything. My son would have declared me incompetent. I'd be in a facility right now, drugged and docile, while David and Jessica burned through 39 years of my work. The cold rage that had sustained me through the hearing crystallized into something harder, more focused. They didn't just try to steal my money. They tried to steal my mind, my dignity, my freedom. They were willing to destroy me completely. I called Lawrence back. "I want to file a civil suit." "Against whom?" "David, Jessica, both of them." My jaw set. Emotional distress. Fraud. Attempted financial exploitation. Whatever applies under Florida law. "That's escalation, Milton. The criminal investigation might be enough." "It's not enough." I cut him off. "They need to understand there are consequences. Real ones. Financial ones." Lawrence considered this. "How much?" $500,000. He whistled low. "That'll bankrupt them." "They were planning to bankrupt me and pretend it was love?" I watched a pelican circle over Clearwater Bay in the distance. "Fair's fair. I'll draft the complaint tomorrow." The lawsuit notification arrived at David's rental house via certified mail 1 week later. I knew because he called immediately, voice shaking somewhere between rage and panic. $500,000? Are you insane?" "Am I?" I kept my tone conversational. "That's what you wanted from me. Seems proportional." "Dad, we're sorry. We made a mistake. You can't—" "I can. I am." I paused. You know what's funny, David? You weren't wrong to think I had money. You were wrong to think I was stupid enough to let you take it. This will destroy us. Good. The word came out colder than I intended, or maybe exactly as cold as I intended. You were willing to destroy me. At least I'm leaving you your freedom. That's more mercy than you planned to show me. He tried pleading, bargaining, finally threatening, though what he thought he could threaten me with after everything remained unclear. I hung up mid-sentence. That evening, Jessica called from her parents' house in Orlando. She'd left David, apparently, taken Chloe and run home to Mommy and Daddy. Milton, please. Her voice was raw. I know what we did was wrong. I know that. But Chloe asks about you every day. She misses her grandfather. That hurt. The first real wound they'd managed to land. Put her on, I said. Grandpa? Chloe's voice was small, 6 years old and caught in the middle of adult wars. Hey, sweetheart. You being good for Grandma and Grandpa? Yes. When can I see you? My throat tightened. Soon, Chloe. I promise. Soon. After I hung up, I sat in the silence of my house on Sunset Drive and wondered if winning felt this hollow for everyone. Lawrence filed the civil complaint the next morning, $500,000 plus legal fees. The process server found David at Prestige Motors during his lunch break. Apparently, he threw up in the parking lot after reading it. Gerald reported this detail with the guilty pleasure of someone who enjoys good gossip. Tom Rodriguez told the Hendersons that David's probably getting fired. Can't have an employee who scares customers and vomits outside the dealership. Sounds like David's having a rough week, I observed. Sounds like David earned a rough week. Gerald studied me. You doing okay with all this? Was I? I'd won the battle. Protected my assets, exposed their fraud. My son was imploding professionally and personally. His wife had left him. His reputation was ruined. Criminal charges loomed. Now civil bankruptcy threatened. I'm fine, I said. Gerald didn't look convinced, but he didn't push. That night, I dreamed about teaching David to ride a bike. He was 7, skinny kid with scraped knees and determination. I'd held the seat steady while he pedaled, running alongside until he found his balance. When he finally rode on his own, he'd looked back at me with pure joy. I did it, Dad. Did you see? I woke up angry. Angry at him for making me remember when he was good. Angry at myself for caring. The war wasn't over, but the next phase was about to begin. Sophia called 3 weeks later with news that made my morning. Found something interesting in David's financial records. I settled into my kitchen chair. I'm listening. That BMW 7 Series he drives, loan application shows he claimed annual income of $98,000. Papers rustled on her end. His actual W-2 from Prestige Motors shows $62,000. That's fraud. Gets better. He listed the car's value at $115,000. Kelley Blue Book puts that model at $87,000 max. Sophia paused for effect. He inflated both his income and the collateral value. Tampa Bay Credit Union gave him $95,000 based on false information. I remembered something then. Years ago, when Little Scholars Daycare was thriving, I'd provided free childcare slots for military families. The program director at MacDill Air Force Base had been grateful, sent me a handwritten thank you note. Her husband worked at Tampa Bay Credit Union, branch manager if memory served. Can you send me the loan documents? Already in your email, I drafted a careful message that afternoon, not accusatory, just concerned. A father who discovered his son might have made errors on a loan application and wanted to bring it to the bank's attention before anyone got hurt. I hit send and waited. Tampa Bay Credit Union's fraud department moved faster than I expected. Within 5 days, David received a certified letter demanding full loan review and documentation of income claims. The bank gave him 10 business days to provide proof or face immediate acceleration. Legal speak for, pay us $95,000 right now, or we're repossessing the car. David didn't have $95,000. He didn't have $9,000. Gerald witnessed the repo truck arrive at David's rental on a Wednesday morning. Big flatbed, Took about 15 minutes to load that BMW. Gerald shook his head. Your son stood in his driveway in his bathrobe, just watching. Didn't even try to stop them. How'd he look? Like a man who'd run out of options. Gerald studied me. You had something to do with that, didn't you? I might have mentioned some discrepancies to the right people. Ruthless, Milton. They tried to have me declared mentally incompetent and locked away. I sipped my coffee. Losing a car seems proportional. But I wasn't finished. Sophia had found something else. Jessica took out a business loan last year. $40,000 from SunTrust for a direct sales cosmetics venture. Sophia's tone dripped skepticism. The application lists you as co-signer. I never co-signed anything for Jessica. I didn't think so. She sent me a PDF. Look at the signature. The scanned document showed my name in handwriting that almost matched mine. Almost. The M in Milton leaned wrong. The G in Gray had an extra loop. Someone had practiced but hadn't quite nailed it. She forged my signature. Yep, that's identity theft, forgery, and fraud. Florida Statute 817568. Third-degree felony. Sophia's voice hardened. You want to press charges? I thought about Jessica's call from Orlando. Chloe's small voice asking when she could see me. The innocent child caught in the crossfire of adult greed. Then I thought about Jessica sitting in my house, photographing my kitchen, asking about insurance documents, building a case to steal everything while pretending to care. Contact the Clearwater Police Department. File a report. The investigation took 2 weeks. Detective Aaron Walsh from the Financial Crimes Unit called me personally. Mr. Gray, we've confirmed the signature is forged. Bank handwriting analysis and your statement are sufficient for charges. What happens now? We issue a warrant for Jessica Marie Gray's arrest. She'll be charged with forgery in the 3rd degree and identity theft. Walsh paused. These charges carry up to 5 years in prison. 5 years. The number sat heavy. Detective Walsh, what if she agreed to make restitution? Pay back the $40,000 plus damages? You'd be willing to accept that instead of prosecution. If she pays $50,000 total, the loan plus $10,000 in compensation, and admits the forgery publicly, I won't push for jail time. Walsh considered this. I'll contact her attorney, see if she's interested in a deal. Jessica was very interested in a deal. Her parents, middle-class folks from Orlando, who'd probably never imagined their daughter capable of felony fraud, borrowed against their house to come up with $50,000. The money hit my account on a Friday. Jessica signed a notarized confession admitting she'd forged my signature. The document would be filed with the court, but sealed from public record, per the plea agreement. She called me after signing. I hope you're happy, Milton. Happy? I laughed without humor. Jessica, you forged my signature to steal $40,000. You participated in a scheme to have me declared incompetent. You helped your husband try to destroy my life. And you think I'm the villain because I didn't let you get away with it? We were desperate. No, you were greedy. There's a difference. I ended the call. David's employment situation collapsed shortly after. Tom Rodriguez at Prestige Motors had given him chances. Multiple chances, but the combination of negative publicity, the lawsuit, the repossessed BMW, and David's increasingly erratic behavior finally exceeded management's tolerance. Rodriguez called me directly. Mr. Gray, I hope you don't mind, but I wanted you to know, we're terminating David's employment. That's your decision, Tom. Customers specifically requested not to work with him. One guy actually said, I don't want to buy from someone who tried to steal from his own father. Rodriguez sighed. I sympathize with family situations, but this is business. I understand. For what it's worth, I'm sorry you're going through this. After I hung up, I felt a strange emptiness. Victory kept tasting like ash. Gerald brought more news within days. Moving trucks showed up at David's place. He's leaving Palm Ridge Court. Where's he going? Studio apartment on Missouri Avenue. Saw the listing, $950 a month. Rough neighborhood. Gerald's expression held something like pity. Your son's fallen pretty far. From a $2,800 rental with a leased Mercedes to a $950 studio in the sketchy part of Clearwater. From $62,000 a year to unemployment. From married to separated, possibly divorced. He built that fall himself, Gerald. I just removed the safety net he thought I'd provide. But Gerald's next information hit differently. Heard them arguing when the movers came. Loud enough the neighbors talked about calling the police. What were they arguing about? Jessica blaming David for everything. David blaming Jessica for finding Dennis Fowler. Both of them screaming about whose fault it was. Gerald shook his head. That marriage is dead, Milton. Even if they don't divorce officially, it's over. I thought about their wedding. I'd paid for half of it. $12,000 because David couldn't afford the venue Jessica wanted. She'd been radiant that day. David had looked at her like she'd hung the moon. Now they were screaming in a driveway while movers hauled boxes, their marriage dissolving in public view. Sophia's final report came via email. Subject line, complete financial picture. I printed out. The numbers told a grim story. David's debts, $140,000 original, now $220,000 with penalties and legal fees. No BMW to show for it. Repoed and sold at auction for $68,000, leaving $27,000 still owed. Credit cards and collections. The civil lawsuit I'd filed adding pressure daily. Jessica's debts. $50,000 to her parents that she'd likely never repay. Her credit destroyed. No income. Living with her parents at age 37 with a 6-year-old daughter. Together, they owed more than most people earned in 3 years. Separately, neither could survive. The destruction was complete, methodical, devastating. I sat on my porch that evening watching the sunset paint Clearwater pink and orange. My house on Sunset Drive stood solid around me. My bank accounts remained full, my freedom intact, my mind sharp despite their attempts to paint it otherwise. I'd won every battle, protected everything, destroyed everyone who'd tried to destroy me. So why did I feel like I'd lost something anyway? My phone buzzed. Text from David. Can we talk, please? I stared at the message for a long time. My son, broke and broken, reaching out. The boy I'd taught to ride a bike. The man who'd planned to lock me away and steal my life. I typed a response, deleted it. Typed another, deleted that too. Finally, I turned off the phone and poured myself a drink. Some conversations could wait. Some wounds needed to bleed a while longer. The war had casualties on both sides. I was just better at hiding mine. June melted into July with humidity thick enough to chew. I ignored David's texts, 17 of them over 5 weeks, each one more desperate than the last. Jessica stopped calling after the restitution payment cleared. Smart woman, knowing when she'd lost. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday. Heavy cardstock, embossed seal of the state of Florida. I almost threw it away with the junk mail. Mr. Milton Gray, you are cordially invited to the 4th of July Veterans Recognition Ceremony at Clearwater Beach. Governor Ron Caldwell will be presenting the Community Hero Award. Your presence is requested at 10 a.m. Ron Caldwell. I hadn't heard that name in years. We'd served together in the Marine Corps back in the 80s. Different platoons, same deployment. Lost touch after discharge, though I'd followed his political career with distant interest. Watched him climb from city council to state senate to governor's mansion. I called the number on the invitation. A polite assistant confirmed. Yes, Governor Caldwell had specifically requested my attendance. Yes, the award was legitimate. Yes, it was being televised by Bay News 9 and covered by local newspapers. The governor mentioned your charitable work with military families, the assistant explained. He'd like to honor that legacy. Legacy? Interesting word. I hadn't publicized Little Scholars Daycare's military program. Never sought recognition for providing free childcare to service members' families from 1995 through 2019. Did it because it felt right, because I'd been a Marine once, and knew the challenges military families faced. Apparently, Ron remembered. The morning of July 4th arrived with cloudless skies and temperatures already pushing 90. I dressed carefully, light gray suit, white shirt, bronze star pin on my lapel. The pin caught sunlight as I locked my front door. Clearwater Beach was packed. Tourists mixed with locals, American flags everywhere, the smell of sunscreen and hot dogs heavy in the salt air. A temporary stage stood near Pier 60, draped in red, white, and blue bunting. Chairs faced the Gulf of Mexico, already filling with attendees. A staffer with a clipboard found me. "Mr. Gray, please follow me." They seated me in the front row, third seat from the aisle. Perfect camera angle, I'd realize later. The ceremony opened with the national anthem. A local high school choir sang. The mayor gave a speech about service and sacrifice. Then Governor Caldwell took the stage. He looked older than his campaign photos. 69 now, hair more silver than brown, but he carried himself like the Marine he'd been. Straight spine, steady gaze, voice that projected without microphone assistance. Today we honor citizens who embody the values we celebrate on Independence Day. Caldwell's eyes swept the crowd. Service, sacrifice, community. These aren't abstract concepts. They're lived by real people who make real differences. He spoke about several recipients. A firefighter who'd saved 3 children from a burning apartment. A teacher who'd started a literacy program in underserved neighborhoods. A nurse who volunteered at homeless shelters. Then he called my name. Milton James Gray served 15 years in the United States Marine Corps, including deployment to the Middle East, where he earned the Bronze Star for valor under fire. Caldwell gestured for me to approach, but his service didn't end with his discharge. In 1995, Milton opened Little Scholars Daycare with a mission: provide quality childcare to working families, with free services for military personnel. I walked to the stage. The audience applauded. Camera flashes popped. Caldwell shook my hand, leaned in close. "Good to see you again, Milton. Still kicking, I see." "Still kicking, sir." He turned back to the microphone. "I know this man personally. We served together. Milton Gray is someone who understands that freedom isn't free, and community isn't built by people who only take." He handed me a framed certificate and a medal on a blue ribbon. "This is the Florida Community Hero Award. It's given to citizens who exemplify selfless service. Milton, on behalf of the state of Florida, thank you." More applause. More cameras. A reporter from Tampa Bay Times asked for a statement. I kept it brief. Honored to be recognized. Grateful for the opportunity to serve. Military families deserve our support. The ceremony concluded with another anthem and a flyover by Coast Guard helicopters. People congratulated me as the crowd dispersed. Old clients from Little Scholars Daycare approached with stories about how the free childcare had saved them during deployments, during hardships. "Gerald found me near the parking area. Didn't know you were a war hero, Milton." "I'm not a hero. I just did my job." "Bronze Star says different." He gripped my shoulder. "Proud to know you." But the real impact happened later. Bay News 9 aired the ceremony on their evening broadcast. The segment lasted 4 minutes. Showed Caldwell's speech, my handshake with the governor, brief interview clips. David and Jessica saw it. I know because Jessica's mother called me that night from Orlando. "Mr. Gray, this is Patricia Henderson, Jessica's mother." Her voice was tight, professional. "My daughter just watched the news coverage of your award ceremony." "Did she?" "She had no idea about your military service, or your connection to the governor, or the scope of your charitable work." A long pause. "She's sitting here crying, Mr. Gray. Says she never knew who you really were." "She never asked, Patricia. I understand why you did what you did, after everything that happened." Patricia's voice softened slightly. "But my granddaughter saw her grandfather on TV being called a hero, and she can't understand why she's not allowed to see him." That hit harder than intended. Chloe, innocent Chloe, watching Grandpa receive awards while living in exile because her parents were criminals. "I'll consider reaching out," I said carefully, "but not yet." "I understand." Patricia hung up. David's text arrived minutes later. "Why didn't you ever tell me? About the Bronze Star, about serving with the governor, about everything?" I stared at the message. So many possible responses. I chose the simplest. "You never asked who I was. You only cared what I had." 2 days after the ceremony, Amanda Foster approached me at Brew Theory Coffee Shop. Gerald's daughter, the journalist. 34, sharp eyes, notebook always ready. Mr. Gray, I'd like to interview you for an article I'm writing. She slid into the chair across from me. It's about elder abuse through fraudulent guardianship schemes. Recent high-profile case here in Clearwater brought attention to the issue. Recent high-profile case, I repeated dryly. Amanda smiled slightly. Dad told me a little. Told me you might have insights. She opened her notebook. I won't use names, but I'd like to tell the story. How these schemes work, how they target veterans and elderly citizens, how families sometimes become predators. Why me? Because you fought back and won. Most victims don't. Most end up in facilities, assets drained, families destroyed. Her expression hardened. I want people to understand this isn't rare. It's systematic. And it's happening to people like you. Decorated veterans, successful business owners, sharp minds in aging bodies. I agreed to the interview. Spent 2 hours walking her through the mechanics of guardianship fraud without naming David or Jessica directly. The facts were specific enough that anyone who'd followed local news could connect the dots. The article ran in Tampa Bay Times on July 15th, front page of the Metro section. When family becomes the enemy, one veteran's fight against guardianship fraud. Amanda had done her homework. The piece detailed Florida's guardianship laws, cited statistics on elder abuse cases, interviewed lawyers and advocates. My story wove through it. Anonymous but unmistakable. Bronze Star recipient. Successful businessman. Son with massive debts. Attorney with history of fraudulent cases. Medical diagnosis purchased for $15,000. The article mentioned the governor's July 4th ceremony without naming me directly, but the timing was obvious. Anyone reading could figure it out. Clearwater's community wasn't large. Word spread like wildfire through dry grass. Gerald reported reactions with the gleeful energy of someone who enjoyed seeing justice served. The Hendersons won't talk to your son if they see him at Publix. The Johnsons crossed the street to avoid him downtown. Rita Patterson told everyone at the community center that David Gray is persona non grata in civilized society. Jessica fared worse. She'd tried returning to Clearwater to apply for jobs, retail, administrative work, anything to rebuild, but employers Googled her name, found the articles, made excuses about positions being filled. She applied at Target on Gulf to Bay Boulevard, Gerald reported. Manager told her straight up, "We don't hire people who steal from family." The casual cruelty of small-town judgment could be devastating. I'd weaponized it perfectly. David left another voicemail. His voice sounded hollow. "Dad, I get it. You won. We lost. The whole town knows we're garbage. Jessica's parents won't even look at me. I'm living in a $900 studio delivering pizzas for DoorDash. You destroyed us completely." A pause. Heavy breathing. "I deserved it. I know that. But watching you on TV, hearing the governor talk about your service, realizing I never knew my own father," his voice cracked. "I was so focused on what you had that I never saw who you were. That's on me. All of it." I listened to the voicemail 3 times. Felt nothing but cold satisfaction mixed with something uncomfortably close to sadness. That evening, I sat on my porch on Sunset Drive and thought about wars. Real ones, where I'd earned that bronze star. Metaphorical ones, where I'd destroyed my only son. In real war, there were rules. Geneva Conventions. Lines you didn't cross. This war had no rules. They'd tried to steal my mind, my freedom, my dignity. I'd responded by taking their money, their jobs, their reputation, their marriage. Fair trade, some might say. But Gerald's question echoed, "You doing okay with all this?" Was I? I'd protected everything I owned. Proven I wasn't the easy target they'd assumed. Made them understand that underestimating the old man was a fatal mistake. The cost was a son who delivered pizzas in shame. A daughter-in-law blacklisted from employment. A granddaughter who asked why Grandpa didn't love her anymore. My phone buzzed. Another text from David. "Please, can we just talk?" I turned off the phone and watched the sun set over Clearwater Bay, painting the sky in shades of red that looked too much like blood. Desperation makes people stupid. David proved this 3 weeks after the ceremony, when Lawrence received a legal filing that made him laugh out loud over the phone. "They're countersuing you." I set down my coffee. "On what grounds?" "Defamation and malicious prosecution. $200,000. Papers rustled on his end. "Claims you orchestrated the entire situation to destroy your son's reputation. Says you used your connections, specifically mentioning the governor, to manipulate the legal system." "That's absurd. It's also desperate. They hired Christopher Kane. He's a mid-tier attorney who takes cases other lawyers won't touch." Lawrence's tone carried amusement. "David and Jessica pooled money from friends to afford his $5,000 retainer. This is their Hail Mary. Can they win?" "Milton, they have no case. None. They initiated the guardianship fraud. They forged signatures. They lied to courts. All we did was defend you with facts." He paused. "But Kane's smart enough to know that. He's probably taking their money, knowing it's hopeless." The countersuit arrived via certified mail 2 days later. 15 pages of legal language trying to reframe David and Jessica as victims of my vindictive manipulation. It claimed I'd systematically destroyed their livelihood and weaponized the legal system for personal revenge. Reading it felt surreal. They'd tried to have me declared insane and locked away. Now they were claiming I was the aggressor. Gerald found it hilarious. "They're saying you're the bad guy? The man they tried to rob?" He shook his head. "That takes nerve." "Takes stupidity," I corrected him, "but let them try." The hearing was scheduled for mid-August. Lawrence assembled our response with the enthusiasm of someone who enjoyed crushing, obviously fraudulent arguments. He brought Rachel Hartman again, the fraud specialist who'd helped destroy Dennis Fowler. Christopher Kane arrived at the courthouse looking uncomfortable. Early 50s, slightly rumpled suit, briefcase that had seen better days. He shook my hand before we entered the courtroom. "Mr. Gray, I want you to know this isn't personal." "Of course it is," I replied. "It's $5,000 personal." His expression flickered. "I'm representing my clients to the best of my ability." "Then you should have advised them not to file." Inside courtroom 4B, David and Jessica sat ramrod straight. This was their last shot. They'd borrowed money they couldn't repay to hire a lawyer. They couldn't afford to file a suit. They couldn't win. The desperation was almost tangible. Judge Robert Morrison presided. Different judge than our first hearing, but he'd read the case file. His expression suggested he'd already formed opinions. Kane's opening argument tried to paint me as a vengeful father who'd manipulated circumstances. "Your Honor, Mr. Milton Gray is a decorated veteran with connections to the highest levels of Florida government. When his son attempted, however misguided, to address legitimate concerns about his father's well-being, Mr. Gray used those connections to systematically destroy his son's life." He cited the newspaper articles, the community ostracization, David's job loss. This wasn't self-defense. This was calculated destruction. My clients made mistakes, yes, but the punishment far exceeded any reasonable response. The performance was adequate. Kane was trying to make us look like bullies. Judge Morrison turned to Lawrence. "Mr. Bennett?" Lawrence stood. Rachel stood with him. The synchronized movement still had impact. "Your Honor, let's be clear about what happened." Lawrence's voice carried ice. "The petitioners didn't attempt to address concerns. They conspired with a corrupt attorney and a fraudulent psychiatrist to have Mr. Gray declared incompetent so they could steal $2.8 million. He projected the evidence on the courtroom screen, the text messages between David and Dennis Fowler, the forged signature on Jessica's loan, the recorded conversation with Dr. Curtis, David's debt statements showing clear financial motive. Every piece of evidence shows premeditation, planning, intent to commit fraud. Lawrence turned to David and Jessica. "They didn't make mistakes, Your Honor. They committed crimes." Kane tried to interject. "Your Honor, my clients were under financial stress." "Financial stress isn't a defense for fraud." Judge Morrison's tone was sharp. Continue, Mr. Bennett. The petitioners claim Mr. Gray manipulated the system. In reality, he simply defended himself using legal means. Lawrence pulled up the trust documents. He established financial protections while demonstrably competent. He gathered evidence of actual crimes. He reported those crimes to appropriate authorities. Nothing he did was improper. Rachel added her analysis. Florida Statute 825.103 specifically addresses exploitation of elderly persons. The petitioners violated this statute. Mr. Gray's response wasn't revenge. It was justice. Kane looked like he wanted to sink through the floor. David stared at the table. Jessica's hands trembled. Judge Morrison removed his reading glasses. Mr. Kane, your clients attempted to defraud an elderly veteran through a guardianship scheme. When that failed, they're now claiming he's the villain for protecting himself. Your Honor, they're willing to apologize. I don't care if they're willing to apologize. The judge's expression could have frozen water. This countersuit is frivolous. Worse, it's offensive. Your clients committed documented fraud, and now they're wasting this court's time claiming the victim is at fault. The gavel struck. Countersuit dismissed. Furthermore, I'm awarding Mr. Gray an additional $15,000 in sanctions for having to defend against this baseless claim. Kane's shoulders slumped. David's face went ashen. Jessica made a sound somewhere between a sob and a gasp. Court adjourned. Outside, Kane approached me in the hallway. Mr. Gray, I apologize for wasting your time. Your attorney was right. I should have advised them not to file. But you took their money anyway. I did. He looked genuinely ashamed. For what it's worth, your son and daughter-in-law just learned an expensive lesson about knowing when to quit. They emerged from the courtroom minutes later. Jessica's mascara ran in familiar black rivers. David moved like a zombie. $515,000. Jessica's voice was shrill. We owe you $515,000 now. How are we supposed to... Shut up. David's response was flat. Dead. Just shut up. Don't tell me to shut up. This was your idea. Your father. Your stupid plan. My idea? David rounded on her. You found Dennis Fowler. You pushed for this. You're the one who said it would work. Because you said your father was a pushover. You said he'd never fight back. Jessica's voice rose to a pitch that echoed off courthouse walls. You told me he was just some old man with money. I didn't know he was a war hero who had the governor's personal phone number. David's composure finally shattered. How was I supposed to know any of that? Maybe by asking. Maybe by caring about who your father actually was instead of just what he had. The fight continued as they walked toward the parking structure. Their voices carried, drawing stares from lawyers and courthouse staff. The public disintegration of their marriage played out for anyone interested enough to watch. Lawrence touched my elbow. We should go. The check arrived from the court administrator 10 days later. $515,000. Original judgment plus sanctions. I stood in my kitchen on Sunset Drive, holding the check, feeling nothing resembling victory. The number was large enough to be meaningful, small enough to know I'd never actually collect it. David didn't have $500,000. Neither did Jessica. This was a moral victory at best. I opened a drawer and pulled out an old photograph. David at 7 years old, gap-toothed smile, holding up a fish we'd caught at Fort DeSoto Park. He'd been so proud. I'd helped him reel it in, watched his face light up with joy. I caught it, Dad. Did you see? I'd seen. I'd been there for that moment and thousands of others. First steps. First day of school. High school graduation. His wedding day. Where had that boy gone? When did the man who'd hug his father at Harbor Lights transform into someone who'd plot to steal his freedom? More importantly, when had I decided the appropriate response was total destruction? Gerald found me on the porch that evening. Heard the countersuit got tossed. Added $15,000 to their debt. Good. Gerald settled into his usual chair. Though I have to say, Milton, you've been thorough. David's unemployed, living in a studio, drowning in debt, and now his wife's left him. Jessica's blacklisted from employment in 3 counties. Their marriage is over. Their reputations are destroyed. They tried to destroy me first. They did. No argument there. Gerald studied me carefully. But you're not celebrating. You're sitting here alone, holding old photographs. So I'll ask again, you doing okay with all this? Was I? I'd protected my assets, proven my competence, exposed fraud, maintained my freedom, everything I'd set out to do. But victory tasted like ashes mixed with regret. The photograph in my pocket showed a 7-year-old who'd loved his father. That boy was gone. The man who'd replaced him was broken, bitter, and bankrupt. I'd broken him. Methodically. Effectively. Completely. I'm fine, I told Gerald. He didn't believe me. I didn't believe me. That night, David's number appeared on my phone. I almost didn't answer. Hello? Dad? His voice was hoarse, defeated. I'm not calling to argue. I'm not calling to ask for money. I just need you to know. I get it now. I understand what I tried to do to you. I understand why you fought back. A long pause. I deserved everything you did to me. I said nothing. Jessica and I are getting divorced. She moved back to Orlando permanently. I'm living in a place with roaches and working delivery apps to afford ramen. He laughed bitterly. Everything you built over decades, I tried to steal in months. And you showed me what happens when you underestimate someone. Is there a point to this call, David? Just this. You won. Completely. Totally. I have nothing left to take. No way to fight back. Nowhere to go but down. His voice cracked. I hope that gives you peace. He hung up before I could respond. I sat in the silence of my house on Sunset Drive, surrounded by everything I'd successfully protected, and wondered why peace felt so far away. August bled into September with heat that refused to break. The house felt larger than it should. Rooms I hadn't entered in weeks gathered dust. My victory had bought me security and loneliness in equal measure. Gerald stopped by more frequently. Checking on me, he claimed, making sure I hadn't gone full hermit. You've been sitting on this porch every evening for 2 weeks, he observed one afternoon, settling into his usual chair. Same position, same expression, same emptiness. I'm fine. You're not. Gerald leaned forward, elbows on knees. You won, Milton. Protected everything. Exposed the fraud. Made them pay. So why do you look like you lost? I didn't answer immediately. A pelican dove for fish in the distance, came up empty. Tried again. I keep thinking about a conversation we had years ago, I finally said. David was maybe 14. Got in trouble at school for cheating on a test. I sat him down, told him actions have consequences. Told him character matters more than shortcuts. Sounds like good parenting. He looked at me and said, I understand, Dad. I won't disappoint you again. I gripped my coffee mug tighter. I believed him. Thought I'd raise someone with integrity. Gerald was quiet, patient. Now he's living in a 950 studio on Missouri Avenue, delivering DoorDash orders to survive, drowning in debt he'll never escape. I met Gerald's eyes. I did that. Methodically. Systematically. I destroyed my own son. He tried to destroy you first. I know. That's what makes this complicated. I set down the mug. Justice says he deserved consequences. But Gerald, I didn't just deliver consequences. I delivered annihilation. I could have stopped at protecting my assets. Instead, I kept pushing until there was nothing left of him. You think you went too far? It wasn't a question. Gerald had known me long enough to read between silences. I think, I said slowly, that somewhere between defending myself and destroying him, I became the kind of person I wouldn't have respected 30 years ago. The divorce papers arrived at David's studio apartment on a Tuesday. I know because he called me from the parking lot of the family law courthouse, voice hollow. It's official. Jessica and I are done. Irreconcilable differences. He laughed without humor. That's what they call it when your marriage implodes because you tried to steal from your father. David, she's already gone. Moved to Orlando last week. Took Chloe. I get supervised visitation twice a month if I can afford the drive. His breathing was ragged. I'm 39 years old, Dad. Divorced, unemployed. living in a place where the shower doesn't drain right and my neighbor deals drugs. This is what I built with my choices. What do you want me to say? Nothing. There's nothing to say. A long pause. I just thought you should know. The family you raised is officially dead. You won. He disconnected. Gerald brought news 2 days later. Saw your son making a delivery on Cleveland Street. DoorDash uniform, thermal bag, the whole setup. He shook his head. Looked rough, Milton. Really rough. How rough? Lost weight, dark circles, driving a beat-up Toyota Corolla that probably should have failed inspection. Gerald's expression softened. He looked like a man who's given up. I thought about that. David delivering pad thai to strangers, probably earning $1,800 a month if he worked 70-hour weeks, barely covering rent, utilities, the crushing debt that would follow him forever. He earned that situation, I said, but the words felt hollow. Did he, though? Gerald challenged. He earned consequences. Question is whether he earned complete destruction. There's a difference between justice and revenge, Milton. Justice restores balance. Revenge just creates more damage. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Unknown Orlando number. I almost didn't answer. Mr. Gray? This is Patricia Henderson, Jessica's mother. We spoke briefly before. I remember. I'm calling about Chloe. Patricia's voice was careful, measured. She's struggling, Mr. Gray. Asks about you constantly. Doesn't understand why Grandpa doesn't call, doesn't visit, doesn't want to see her. My chest tightened. Her parents made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But Chloe is 6 years old and innocent. Patricia paused. She drew a picture yesterday at school. Family portrait. You know who she included? I waited. You. Not her father. You. The teacher asked why Daddy wasn't in the picture, and Chloe said, because Daddy made Grandpa sad. Patricia's voice cracked slightly. She thinks this is all her fault somehow, that if she'd been better, you wouldn't have left. The words hit like physical blows. Chloe. Innocent Chloe, who'd done nothing wrong except be born to terrible parents. Can I speak with her? She's at school, but I can have her call you tonight. Patricia hesitated. Or you could come visit. She'd love that. She keeps asking when she can see you. After we hung up, I sat motionless on my porch. The afternoon stretched long and quiet. Gerald had left, sensing I needed space to think. I'd spent months building the perfect revenge, protected my assets, exposed fraud, destroyed reputations, bankrupted enemies, won every battle, claimed every victory. But Chloe was collateral damage. An innocent child who missed her grandfather, who didn't understand adult wars, who thought she'd somehow caused this rift. My phone rang that evening. Patricia's number. Grandpa? Chloe's voice was small, hesitant. Hey, sweetheart. Why don't you come see me anymore? Did I do something bad? The question cut deeper than any legal filing ever had. No, Chloe. You didn't do anything bad. You're perfect. Then why don't you love me? My throat closed. I do love you. Very much. Then why are you gone? She started crying. Mommy and Daddy fight all the time, and Daddy doesn't live with us anymore, and you don't call, and I miss you so much. I closed my eyes, saw her at 3 years old, laughing as I pushed her on swings at the park. At 4, helping me water plants in my garden. At 5, proudly showing me her kindergarten drawings. At 6, caught in the crossfire of adult stupidity and greed. Chloe, listen to me. None of this is your fault. Not one bit. The grown-ups made mistakes. But I'm still your grandpa, and I still love you. Really? Really. And I want to see you too. When? Hope flooded her voice. When can you come? I looked around my house on Sunset Drive. The fortress I'd successfully defended. The empty rooms. The victory that tasted like defeat. Soon, sweetheart. Very soon, I promise. After Chloe hung up, I sat in darkness and thought about costs. David had tried to steal $2.8 million. In response, I'd taken his job, his marriage, his reputation, his future, and inadvertently, his daughter's sense of security. The scales weren't balanced. They were shattered. Gerald appeared at my door the next morning. You look different. Different how? Like you've decided something. He studied me carefully. Good different or bad different? I don't know yet. I grabbed my keys. But I need to drive to Orlando. See my granddaughter. What about David? What about him? You going to talk to him? Offer a truce? I considered this. David was broken, probably beyond repair. Our relationship was damaged in ways that might never heal. But Chloe was innocent, and somewhere in my crusade for justice, I'd forgotten that not every casualty was justified. I don't know, I admitted, but I can't keep punishing her for her parents' sins. That's not justice. That's just cruelty. Gerald smiled. Now you're thinking clearly. Am I? I destroyed my son, Gerald, completely. Maybe permanently. That's not something you come back from. Maybe not, but you can stop making it worse. Gerald gripped my shoulder. Justice was protecting yourself. Everything after that was revenge. The question is whether you're ready to stop. I thought about David's voicemail, the brokenness in his voice, the admission of guilt and acceptance of consequences. I thought about Jessica, blacklisted from employment, living with her parents at 37. I thought about Chloe, who just wanted her grandfather back. I protected what was mine, I said quietly, but in the process I lost what mattered. So what now? Now I try to figure out if anything can be salvaged. I walk toward my truck, starting with my granddaughter. The rest, I don't know. Maybe some things can't be fixed. Gerald watched me pull out of the driveway. Milton, I stopped, rolled down the window. Revenge is easy. Forgiveness is hard. But only one of them lets you sleep at night. The drive to Orlando took 90 minutes. I spent every minute wondering if I'd pushed too far, if justice had turned into something uglier, if winning meant anything when it cost you everyone you loved. Patricia answered the door. She's been waiting by the window for an hour, wouldn't eat breakfast. Is David? David doesn't know you're coming. Jessica called him yesterday, told him she thought you and Chloe should reconnect. He didn't object. I think he's too broken to fight anything anymore. Before I could respond, small footsteps thundered down the hallway. Grandpa! Chloe crashed into my legs with the full force of a 6-year-old who'd missed someone desperately. I picked her up, felt her arms wrap around my neck, and for the first time in months, something in my chest loosened. I missed you so much, she whispered into my shoulder. I missed you too, sweetheart. She pulled back, looked at my face with serious eyes. Are you going to go away again? I thought about my empty house, my complete victory, the hollow triumph that had left me alone with my righteousness. No, Chloe, I'm not going anywhere. The afternoon passed in a blur of coloring books and stories. Chloe showed me her room, her toys, her school projects. We fed ducks at a nearby park. She held my hand and chattered about everything and nothing. As the sun started setting, Patricia pulled me aside. She needed this. Thank you for coming. I should have come sooner. You were hurt, angry. Those feelings were valid. Patricia's expression was kind, but firm. But punishing David also punished her. I hope you see that now? I did. Too clearly. On the drive home, I called Lawrence. The civil suit against David and Jessica. What would it take to settle? Milton, I want to know my options. Can we reduce the judgment? Lawrence was quiet. Yes, but why? Because my granddaughter shouldn't have to grow up knowing her grandfather destroyed her parents completely. There's a difference between justice and annihilation. I'm learning that difference about 6 months too late. What are you proposing? I don't know yet, but the war needs to end, before there's nothing left to salvage. Lawrence drafted the settlement proposal 3 days later. The $515,000 judgment would be reduced to $50,000, payable over 10 years at $5,000 annually. No interest. No penalties for late payment, if David could document genuine hardship. This is extraordinarily generous, Lawrence observed. He'll never fully compensate you. I don't need compensation. I need to sleep at night. I signed the papers. Send it to his attorney. David called within hours of receiving the offer. His voice shook. Is this real? It's real. Why? After everything I did, why would you? Because my granddaughter shouldn't have to grow up knowing I destroyed her father completely. I kept my tone level. This doesn't mean I forgive you, David. It means I'm choosing to stop punishing Chloe for your mistakes. Silence on his end. Then, can we meet? Face to face? I need to say things that don't work over the phone. When? Whenever you're willing. I thought about that. Part of me wanted to refuse, to maintain the wall I'd built. But Gerald's words echoed, "Forgiveness is hard, but it's the only thing that lets you sleep at night." Crest Lake Park, Saturday afternoon, 2 o'clock. Saturday arrived with temperatures finally dropping into the 70s. The park was busy with families, joggers, people feeding ducks by the water. I found David sitting at a picnic table near the playground, watching children on swings with an expression I recognized, longing mixed with regret. He'd lost weight. Gerald hadn't exaggerated. His DoorDash shirt was clean but worn. The confidence that had carried him through his scheme had been replaced with something closer to defeat. He saw me approaching and stood, hesitated, then sat back down. I took the bench across from him. "You wanted to talk." "I don't know where to start." His hands twisted together on the table. "I've practiced this conversation 100 times, and now that you're here, everything I planned to say feels inadequate." "Try anyway." He took a breath. "I was a terrible son. Not just in the guardianship scheme, though that was unforgivable, but in everything that led to it. I looked at you and saw a bank account instead of a father. I listened to Jessica complain about money and thought the solution was stealing from you instead of living within our means." His voice cracked. "I was willing to have you declared insane, Dad, to lock you away, to steal your freedom and your dignity and pretend it was love." I stayed silent, let him continue. "The worst part is I thought you were weak, an easy target, some old man who'd never fight back." He met my eyes finally. "Then I watched you on TV receiving an award from the governor, heard about your Bronze Star, your 15 years in the Marines, your charity work that touched hundreds of families, and I realized I never knew my own father because I never bothered to ask." "You only cared what I had," I said quietly, "not who I was." "Exactly." He wiped his eyes roughly. "I deserve everything that happened. The lawsuit, the job loss, the divorce, the public shame, Jessica leaving, living in that studio apartment where the walls are so thin I hear my neighbors' arguments every night. All of it. That's quite an admission. It's the truth." He gestured at himself. "This is what I built with my greed. 39 years old, delivering pizzas to survive, drowning in debt I'll never fully pay. My daughter lives 3 hours away and barely knows me. My wife, ex-wife, won't speak to me. The town I grew up in treats me like a criminal." "You were a criminal." "I was." He didn't argue. "But you know what the worst part is? It's not the poverty or the shame or the debt. It's knowing that I had a father who would have helped me if I'd just asked. If I'd been honest about the financial trouble instead of trying to steal. If I'd treated you like a person instead of an ATM." A child's laughter rang out from the playground. We both turned to watch. The sound felt incongruous against our conversation. "I'm accepting your settlement offer," David said. $5,000 a year for 10 years. It'll take everything I can scrape together, but I'll pay it. Not because I have to. I know bankruptcy would wipe most of it, but because it's the only way I can prove I've changed." "Changed how?" "I got a second job. Night shift at a Walmart distribution center. Between that and DoorDash, I'll make enough to cover rent, debt payments, and maybe see Chloe once a month." He smiled bitterly. "Not exactly the life I imagined, but it's honest work. That's more than I could say 6 months ago. I studied my son, the boy I'd raised, the man who'd betrayed me, the broken person now trying to rebuild from rubble. Jessica called me last week," he continued. "She's taking classes at Valencia College. Business administration. Says she's done pretending to be an influencer and wants real skills. She's ashamed of what we did. Won't even visit Clearwater because she can't face people. She should be ashamed. We both should." David leaned forward. "Dad, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve that. I'm not asking you to forget what I did or pretend it didn't happen. I just need you to know. I understand now. I understand what I tried to take from you. And I'm sorry. Truly, completely, devastatingly sorry. The apology hung in the air between us. No excuses, no blame shifting, just acknowledgement and remorse. I'm sorry too, I said finally. His head jerked up. What? I'm sorry I didn't stop at protecting myself. You tried to destroy me, and I responded by destroying you. That was justice up to a point. After that point, it became revenge. I kept pushing until there was nothing left of you. You deserved consequences. Prison, probably. Definitely public exposure and financial penalties. I cut him off. But I made sure you lost everything. Your marriage, your job, your reputation, your connection with your daughter. Some of that was inevitable. Some of it was me being thorough. You were protecting yourself. I was annihilating you. There's a difference. I watched the ducks paddling near the shore. Gerald asked me if I was doing okay with all this. I kept saying I was fine, but I wasn't. Victory felt like ashes because somewhere in my crusade for justice, I forgot that you were still my son. David's shoulders shook. He covered his face with his hands. I won't forget what you did, I continued. I can't. Trust doesn't come back easily. Maybe it never comes back fully, but I can stop making your life harder. I can reduce the debt to something manageable. I can let you rebuild. Why? His voice was muffled by his hands. Because Chloe asked me why I don't love her anymore. Because she thinks your mistakes are her fault. Because I'd rather be her grandfather than your executioner. He lowered his hands. Tears streaked his face. I don't know how to make this right. You don't. Not completely. Some things can't be fixed. I stood. But you can stop making it worse. Pay the $50,000 over 10 years. Be honest. Work hard. Be a better father to Chloe than you were a son to me. I will, I promise. Don't promise me. Prove it. I started to walk away, then turned back. David, one more thing. Yeah? The next time you're in Clearwater to see Chloe, you can come by the house. Not to visit. Not to rebuild what we had. Just to pick up some things I've been holding for you. Baby pictures, your mother's jewelry she wanted you to have, things that belong to you. His expression crumbled. Dad, don't read more into it than it is. I'm not offering reconciliation. I'm offering basic decency. I paused. But maybe someday, if you prove you've really changed, we can try for more. Someday, not today. I left him at that picnic table, crying quietly while children played nearby. Gerald found me on my porch that evening. How'd it go? He apologized. Meant it, I think. I sipped my coffee. Jessica's taking college classes. David's working 2 jobs. They're trying to rebuild from nothing? You reduce the judgment to $50,000, payable over 10 years. Gerald nodded slowly. That's mercy, Milton, not weakness. Mercy. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just tired of being angry. I watched the sunset paint Clearwater pink. I won everything, Gerald. Protected my assets. Exposed the fraud. Destroyed their reputations. Made them pay. But winning didn't feel how I expected. How did you expect it to feel? Satisfying. Instead, it just felt empty. I set down my coffee. I spent 6 months proving I wasn't weak, wasn't stupid, wasn't an easy target. But in the process, I lost my family. That's not victory. That's just different kind of loss. So what now? Now I try to figure out what comes after revenge. Lawrence tells me Dennis Fowler's serving 18 months in federal prison for the guardianship schemes. Dr. Curtis got 5 years for Medicare fraud. The people who tried to destroy me are facing consequences. And David? David's paying his debt. Slowly. Painfully. But honestly, I paused. He'll never be the son I thought I raised. But maybe he can be someone better than the person he became. Time will tell. 3 weeks later, David made his first payment, $5,000, transferred from an account that probably had exactly $5,012 in it. The payment confirmation came with a note. First of 10. I won't miss one. David. Chloe visited me at the end of September. We spent the afternoon at the beach, building sandcastles, collecting shells, eating ice cream that melted faster than we could finish it. She held my hand and talked about school. about her friends, about nothing important, and everything that mattered. "Daddy said you're friends again," she mentioned casually while searching for sand dollars. "We're working on it, sweetheart." "That's good. I like it when people work on things instead of giving up." She found a perfect sand dollar and showed me triumphantly. "See? Sometimes broken things can be fixed if you're careful." Out of the mouths of 6-year-olds, Jessica never called to apologize. I didn't expect her to. Gerald reported seeing her at Valencia College's website. She'd made the dean's list, building a new life in Orlando. That was probably for the best. The house on Sunset Drive felt less empty as October arrived. Gerald came by regularly. Lawrence stopped treating our meetings like war councils and started treating them like friendly check-ins. I started volunteering at the community center, teaching basic financial literacy to young families. Turned out I had skills beyond just protecting assets. Who knew? David sent a photo in early October, him and Chloe at a pumpkin patch, both smiling. He looked healthier. She looked happy. The caption read, "Thank you for letting me try to be better." I saved the photo, didn't respond. Some things didn't need words. One evening in late October, I sat on my porch and thought about the past year, the betrayal, the battle, the victory that felt like defeat until I understood that revenge and justice weren't the same thing. I'd protected everything I owned, proven I wasn't weak, made them understand that underestimating the old man was a fatal mistake. But the real victory wasn't the money or the court judgments or the public vindication. The real victory was deciding to stop fighting before there was nothing left to save. Gerald joined me, bringing oranges from his tree. "You look peaceful." I feel closer to it than I did 6 months ago. What changed? I realized that being right doesn't always mean being happy, and being strong doesn't always mean being unforgiving. I took an orange. David betrayed me. Jessica enabled it. They deserved consequences, but Chloe deserved a grandfather. And I deserved peace more than I deserved revenge. Took you long enough to figure that out. Better late than never. The sun set over Clearwater Bay, painting the sky in colors that no longer reminded me of blood. Just beauty. Just another day ending, another day beginning. I'd won the war, but more importantly, I'd stopped fighting before victory cost me everything that actually mattered. That was the lesson David never learned until it was too late. Some battles aren't worth winning if you lose yourself in the process. Me? I learned it just in time, and that made all the difference. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.